the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, Marie's remote, just a reminder, we do all of these.
All right, the first agenda item is acceptance of donations, Director of Elder Services. Joe, are you handling this?
Yes. So within the board's packet, we have a number of donations. First, would like to recognize, and Tanya has a memo for the board for each of these, that the Town of Upton Fire and EMS Association recently donated a wooden podium valued at $600 to the Department of Elder Social Services for use in the Great Room. So thanks to them for that donation. It definitely is something that is needed over there for anyone that's been at a recent Veterans Day lunch.
Yes.
Definitely could have used a better podium.
Podium they have there is a little bit on the short side.
Okay. And then we got a number, we also received, or the ESS department received a number of donations two to the food pantry, one from Linda Sanders for $50 gift card, Bob Fleming, $100 donation towards the food pantry, and then anonymous donor donated 12 $25 Market Basket gift cards, as well as holiday blankets to support residents in need in Upton.
Appreciate that. Any questions or comments?
No questions or comments other than it's fantastic. It's just, I love seeing all the reflection of the generosity of the people in this community. It never ceases to amaze me. So fantastic. Can you make the motion, Maureen?
Yeah.
I move that the select board,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry. I move that the select board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, accept donation of a wooden podium of value of $600 to the Town of Upton Department of Elder and Social Services and from Upton Fire and EMS Association. And I move that well, I guess we'll do one motion at a time, right? Yeah.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second,
All in favor, roll call vote because Maureen's remote.
Maureen Dwinell, I.
Brett Simus, aye.
Laura, have I unanimous?
I move that the select board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, subsection 53A, to accept donations to the Town of Upton Department of Elder and Social Services from Linda Sanders, $50 for the food pantry, Bob Fleming, COA member, $100 donation to the food pantry, and an anonymous donor of 12 $25 Market Basket gift cards totaling $300, and 12 holiday blankets, estimated value at $240 to support residents in need in Upton.
A second,
Roll call vote.
Maureen Dwinell, I.
Brett Simus, aye.
Laura, have I? Unanimous? And once again, this is Upton, we look out for each other and it's always nice to see. Joe, for your town manager report.
Okay, this is going to be a little short. Just wanted to give everyone an update that CHA Associates, they are the consultant that will be working on the TIP enhancement project. This is through funding that was secured at special town meeting. We held the kickoff meeting yesterday between Michael, myself, and their team. And we've already scheduled a meeting with the MassDOT design team for January 6th to talk about design of not only the roundabout, but also lighting and landscaping within the project area. So that's going to be moving forward. The consultant does know that we will have a workshop that they'll be able to come here, sort of present some of their concepts and discuss design and things with the board. And we'll have that available over Teams as well to give people an idea and provide input into that process. Staff is also working with our IT staff. We're evaluating 2 proposals for improvements to this room. This was a grant that was received last year alongside funding that also went to Mendon Upton Regional School District. We're looking at coming, or I'm looking at coming back for the January 7th meeting with basically a recommendation for authorization for a contract. Basically, just a brief summary. This room used to be organized with the table this way, more chairs spread out that way. You can see the remnants of the cameras that were here.
Yes.
Even our questionable ADA compliant power cord going over to the wall. Everything was designed to come out of a floor panel. We're gonna propose reconfiguring the room to move the table over here. New cameras, get that all set up so that we can improve the experience for people joining us virtually through Teams or Zoom or more. So that's work that would be done, needs to be completed before June 30th, 2025. I also attended last week 2 subcommittee meetings with Mendon Regional School District. First was a budget and the second was a capital subcommittee. The budget subcommittee was relatively short because it was talking about not on the revenue side because that's still a little unknown with state revenue projections, which are still a little questionable for FY26, but really focus more on some of the drivers for FY26 continued increases in budget constraints that they're under. Those meetings happen on a monthly basis in December and January, and then they start refining through January and February before presenting sort of their budget recommendation to us in March. The capital subcommittee meeting, basically they presented what they considered as the top capital projects. There was consensus by the capital subcommittee that that was what they were going forward with. And one of those is that roof project, which the board may recall, MSBA did select Mendon Upton Regional School District to the accelerated building repair program for replacing the roof at Nemacolin High School. That process is underway. They're going to be submitting materials to the state, and then early in 2025 have an OPM, owner's project manager, assigned so they can do the design work. Tied to that, both Mendon Upton as well as the school district, we are through some of our contacts with National Grid, Green Communities. We are going to be looking to see if we can tap into Green Communities for some of the HVAC upgrades. That was not called for in the original proposal from the engineers on the roof project. But that is something that we might be able to dovetail in and to get approval as we're doing that design work. So reached out to National Grid and one of the people that works for them that runs the assessment is going to coordinate with both Mendon Upton as well as the school district to do an analysis of the building to see what programs we might be able to qualify for.
Just a quick question on
Yeah.
that. I'm sure this has come up, but it's not a novel idea, but did they look at or think about or assess, right, given that we're going to be spending almost $10 million on a roof, people thinking about solar?
That's been raised with district, and that is something that also about 2 weeks ago, I met with the town administrator in Mendon and Maureen Cohen, the superintendent, and that is something that both Jeremy, the town administrator, and I raised with Maureen. They currently have through some of their solar programs, lease agreements, and then also you have the carports that
I did such a good job at NESCO putting in those sort of
So
solar.
we are encouraging looking at that even for a lease type for revenue. Because replacing a roof, you're not touching that for another 30 years if there is a way to offset.
Yeah.
So that is something that we're encouraging them to also look at. But that roof project is something that the district did indicate because it's also required by the MSBA timeline to seek both town Mendon and Upton's approval authorization at this coming annual town meeting. So fully expect that. The other capital they have not really defined, there's still a lot of refinement of what some of those other solutions are. Project management systems, paging systems, technology has changed, the hardwired paging systems through the schools isn't really needed. They're evaluating the wireless solution, which is drastically different than what was priced when you look at their capital facilities plan. So there's more refinement that needs to be done. They did discuss bringing everything together as sort of like looping all the projects together, including the fields. Whether or not that's for annual, whether or not that's for fall, whether or not that gets revisited when the next meeting happens later in January. Paul Flaherty and I, we both attended as observers, did comment that to go all in this close to when Upton's warrant closes, this close to the budget season, that's going to present some hurdles from an education fully understanding. So we did express like, this really should have been done. This discussion really should have been 4 months ago to try for this year. I was pushing for more multi-town meetings because there's a lot more that still isn't even being addressed when they bring this together to the table. So how are we going to achieve all those things? There's many more capital projects. So that's something that I'll continue to work and communicate not only with my counterpart in Mendon, but also with the Stormberg tenant and attending these things to give us the best visibility as far as what the thought process is.
And it may be advantageous to do like a workshop with the Bennett Selectmen, school board and see. So everybody's on the same page, so we know what's coming down the pike. You know, because like you said, it should have been 4 months ago, and I think we mentioned that when the fields people came in, that
Yeah.
TikTok is moving.
Yeah.
People don't realize how fast our calendars move, but then we at least would know.
Yeah.
You know, we're not getting everything second and third. I don't know if that's an impossibility, but
Yeah, I mean, that's where I relate that. I even said like, hey, we have a meeting coming up January 21st. If you're starting to provide some detail, I'd love to have you in for a presentation to update the select board as we also are talking about our financial picture in FY 26.
And I think, right, like, and we know this, we've talked about this at NC, right? Like, if anytime we go to town meeting and ask voters to approve any kind of significant expenditure, contextualizing that in terms of our long-term investment strategy is really important, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, folks just feel like, oh, this is like the thing of the day, but they've got to know, like, if we're asking for $10 million for a roof for Nipmuc, then we also are going to be asking for 10 million, whatever the number is for a DPW at some point in time.
Yeah.
And we're going to be asking for, it sounds like they're asking for, multiple tens of millions of dollars of capital improvements. So like all this stuff needs to be like slotted and sort of understood and rationalized so that when we go to town meeting, people aren't just wrapped around the axle fighting over nickels and dimes. They understand like, hey, look, this is a long-term strategic investment that we need to make or don't need to make.
Yeah.
People can vote on it one way or the other, but we as a board and as sort of leaders or community leaders, like owe it to the voters to sort of contextualize all of that, in my opinion. And I think that the conversation like you're talking about, like get us together with the school committee and the superintendent and Mendon and sort of have a conversation and be like, all right, how do we want to get after this stuff? Because that's one input to our strategic planning process. It's not the only thing going on in the world. We've got Holy Angels that we're sort of sitting on and there's opportunities there. That's much smaller investment in the scheme of what we're talking about. But we've got these things out there and we need to be able to talk to the voters about them because they don't forget.
no,
Right?
and
They drive by Holy Angels
and
every day.
and it's no different that Mendon has capital issues that we don't know about.
Exactly.
So if we can at least have, I mean, let's face it, we're a regional school district.
Yeah.
Which means both budgets are affected. So if we get everybody in the same room, we at least can see, like you said, the horizon and say, hey, we've got a lot coming down the pike. Let's not get run over by the train.
We also, we've started our FY 26 budget prep. I'm working with staff and departments and trying to lay out that process. We do continue to have some that this is their first time going through that process. So providing that overview and providing that guidance, that's something that we're working on as well. Beginning of the week, we received check in the mail from the bank that is associated with the Harvey J. Trask Trust. So nice 1.5 that came in the mail, and I tentatively scheduled it for discussion on the January 7th meeting. As the board may recall, 250 off the top can be used for any other purpose the select board deems appropriate, as long as it's not balancing the books. And the remaining 1.2 goes into a trust, and then those invested, the revenue coming off of that can be used for town land, town parcels, the common, town hall, sides of roads for upkeep, beautification, and overall keeping town pretty.
And that automatically just like folds into the sort of trust fund committee
Correct.
oversight and
There-
protocol and investment plan and all that stuff. It just sort of-
Exactly, and that's going to be for, what I'll be doing is having an agenda item that formally has the select boards, just so we don't have any question.
Right, and then we
accept the
yeah.
gift. And then we'll direct the treasurer to do X, Y, and Z, including one, work with the trust fund to have things go to the appropriate account. I am communicating with trust in order to make sure that, because as the board knows, there are some procedural tasks that the town historically has been doing to jump through hoops to take the calculations on revenue that the investing company provides and fit into this spreadsheet to then reallocate. I do want to try to resolve any of the extra hoops our staff has to go through, make sure that it's streamlined, and talk about how we can improve that efficiency so it's not something that we have to work on for almost a whole month after June 30th, and streamline. If they're getting additional funds, they can work a little harder to make sure that we're not the ones that are actually shouldering the cost burden of our staff to run through accounting hoops. So that is something with this I am going to be leveraging to make sure that we can improve our internal efficiency.
Good.
And then lastly, just a reminder that town buildings, thanks to the vote of the select board, are going to be closed on Christmas Eve day, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve day, and New Year's Day. We will still have Meals on Wheels coming out of the community center on both those days, so that our senior residents who rely on those Meals on Wheels will still get warm meals for that.
Is everything?
Oh, there's so much more, but we could just, that's what
That
ends up being.
Exactly, no problem. Okay. Do I hear any public input or board member updates? Hearing and seeing none, we'll keep moving. So select board discussion, the ARPA rescue plan, the allocation of funds.
So I gave a heads up last meeting that we had a line that basically identified miscellaneous highway improvements. I conferred with Dennis and Kenny that administratively it would be easier to take that miscellaneous and just have it into larger items that then specifically we can tie to articles to reappropriate those funds. These are the two that I would recommend revoting just for that $54,461.30. Makes it easier for us to track and report, and then also prepare articles for town meeting, reallocating those funds back to Grove Street Bridge.
Okay. Any questions, Maureen?
No, I go along with that.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
I move that the board vote to approve the reallocation of the American Rescue Plan Act as presented.
Second the motion?
All in favor, roll call vote.
Maureen Dwinell, I.
Simus, aye.
Laura have I, unanimous. Next is the Forest Heights project update. Mike, will you be doing that? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
You can have the comfortable chair or the uncomfortable chair, but if you choose the black one, be careful, it has a mind of its own.
Okay, well, thanks. I'm here representing Metacomet Land Trust tonight, and I just, as you probably heard, Metacomet did receive a forest reserve grant to purchase a conservation restriction on the Forest Heights project. There were, just for information, that grant, we distributed about $5 million, 13 different projects, 10 different towns and land trusts received grants. And Metacomet received a Forest Heights grant and a grant for a project in Renton. So we're very excited about that. I just wanted to go over with you kind of next steps. And feel free to ask questions and interject if any of this doesn't make sense, but we've got a scope of work for an appraisal ready to put out actually tomorrow. It's coordinated it with Bill Taylor. So we're hoping to have an appraisal probably by mid-February, roughly, maybe March. While that is being worked on, we'd like to submit a draft conservation restriction to the EEA, to the state. I'm hoping to have a draft that the town can review in early January. And once the town reviews it, we can send it out to the state. And then, unfortunately, there's a very long review period there. So quite a backlog of conservation restrictions. So it's possible that review could take a year. So the thought though is to get it in the queue as soon as possible. And then the next thing to talk about, or to now what needs to be thinking about, is whether or not Metacomet and the town need some sort of a MOU, purchase and sale agreement. Metacomet would suggest that we start working on that, but that we finalize it till after the appraisal is about. And that's kind of how the select board feels about that. And we could do that at any time, start working on that, or we could perhaps even not have, but that's something to just discussion point for later. And assuming everything is going well, we would like to have a survey done by this fiscal year, June 31st. So we'll be working on survey scope. And then the next step after that would be something called a baseline report, which would document existing conditions that's needed for the conservation restriction process. That would occur in the fall of 25. And then we're hoping to, if somewhat of a miracle happens, close in the fall of 25, sometime in the winter 26, the project would have to be completed by June 31st of 26. Questions?
Questions, Maureen, do you have any questions?
No, this is the 100 acres, right? Yeah.
106.
And what's and sorry, I'm kind of flipping through trying to see if I can find a map of this. I generally know where it is. Is the land presently owned by the town?
Correct.
It is, okay, so this would put a restriction on, what's the current status of the land? Is it considered conservation land? Is it under any type of conservation restriction? It's just town-owned land?
No, it's just town-owned land under the jurisdiction of select board. There was a town meeting vote in 2019.
How did we come to acquire the land? Oh, beautiful, thank you, sir.
It was a tax taking.
Say it again.
Tax taking.
Got it. Got it.
Does it
Okay.
have frontage on, is that? And I'm straining myself, that little yellow line. Yes,
It's a
is
road.
that,
That is.
that's Westboro Road, or is that North Street?
North Street, yeah. Yeah, 'cause
Okay.
that's the Mass Pike right there, right?
Okay,
Got it. And that's existing, like the land behind it is that Warren Brook or what's behind it?
Interestingly enough, so this land here is owned by a family of Machi. And I'm one of the Sudbury Valley trustees, I'm currently working with them to conceivably preserve this rectangle here.
that goes into Grafton, correct?
Their land goes into Grafton, that was still all being around. One of the things we're hoping to negotiate with the family would be a easement from Bay Mountain Road to Grafton. So even with the property, Grafton will be able to take advantage of it as well.
That's awesome.
And
Good.
they're long-term Upton people, although they don't live in Upton at the moment.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. Okay. I appreciate the context, the new guy, right? So thank you.
Appreciate it.
Great.
Now, one other thing I wanted to mention is the frontage on Marsh Street happens to be across the highway, Marsall Highway. And one of the things we've been talking about, we'll do, is we have an easement across our property so that you could walk across it to get back to some state forest and what's behind our house.
To connect.
DPI was working on acquiring some more land to join a couple of pieces of up to state forest land in the area. So you just have this wonderful swath of
Great.
Okay.
with trails on it.
Okay.
And there's also, about the Fay Mountain Road, not too far from, potentially a trail easement could be, through Massey property. There's Grafton Conservation.
Yes.
Too. The potential for, and then eventually from up and say forest to get into Hopkinton, so there's potential for linking three towns together.
Which I
It's
was
really
referred to as the hub, right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
It, and it's like, it's just such a nice reminder, because we talk about sort of the generosity and the gift from the Trasks and the gifts that people were donating at the beginning of this, and just sort of, it's just a reminder, right? Like, one of the things that makes Upton what we are and a destination and a place people want to be is the open space and the commitment to preservation of this open space for the people to use and enjoy and use for whatever activity it is that they're passionate about. And it really just is great. So I'm grateful for all of the work, the effort that you all do. And Lisa, I see you on the phone as well. All the work that you do, we're very grateful for the partnership and the support and the advocacy and all the great work you've done over the years and continue to do. Thank you.
It is wonderful, and it's what I hear a lot. Yes, it is great. Professionally, I hear a lot, people come for the land and then they stay for the people, which is wonderful
Oh, I
to
love
hear.
that.
I hear that from, I have people call me,
I love
you
that.
know,
Yeah,
it's nice.
thanks.
Thank you. Okay, next would be the trust fund request, for the Ritz.
Yeah, so in the board's packet is a request from Fire and EMS Association for reimbursing the 622 for libraries that were purchased through them and at the community center side of Steam, police and fire.
I move that the board reimburse fire and EMS for the purchase of holiday lights and wreaths in the amount of $622.20 to be funded from the Ristine D Beautification Fund.
I'll second.
All in favor, roll call vote.
Maureen Dwinell, I.
Simon's aye.
Laura have I, unanimous. And I'd like to thank the fire and EMS because the wreaths really are stunning this year. Something we've been going without for a little bit.
Oh.
I hope it becomes an
And
annual.
ditto on the putting up of the lights, right? Like, getting all those lights up is no small undertaking, and it's a lot of work and
Up
hours.
and down.
Up and, yeah, up and down, right? And it's like, this crew just does it and gets it done with very little fanfare
Exactly.
or recognition, and they just do it because it's a nice thing to do for the town. So we're very grateful for and recognize that.
Next is the trust fund request to amend the October 15th, 2024 vote on the purchase of flags for the town front.
So, the board authorized an initial amount. And we just went slightly over, and these were also for, lights. We had, based the price off of, the flags and lights, just came in a little bit more. Because one of the challenges, I think everyone this time of season, if you're shopping on Amazon, you may find that you can't get it for that date. You have to choose a different one.
Yeah.
And the
And when you're ordering 75 of something,
Same.
Yes.
you know,
Yep,
They gotcha.
yeah, they gotcha. They knew we needed them.
Yeah.
so, but I think yeah,
It's minuscule. It's like a 1% increase.
And it
like the,
looked beautiful.
yeah, I mean, that's.
We have,
Really Statement.
you know, honestly, the goodwill and the comments,
That's right. Agreed.
you know,
Agreed.
between the wreaths and the flags, we're really cooking with gas here.
You know, sometimes it, right, like it's all of these little things that come together to make up them great. So
It
it's a privilege to be a part of it.
It does, okay. So do I hear a motion?
I move that the board amend the vote taken at the October 15th, 2024 meeting to authorize the purchase of up to 75 flags and lights for an amount not to exceed $2,205.86 to be funded from the Ristine D Beautification Fund.
Second the motion.
All in favor, roll call vote.
Maureen Dwinell, aye.
Brett Simus, aye.
Laura have I, unanimous. Thank you. And now we're up to the select board policy review process.
So I first would admit, I wanted to be able to provide the board with like a spreadsheet that basically said, here's the list, here are financial ones, here's DPW, here's police, fire, and then town ones. And I just unfortunately didn't get to it.
It's the season.
And, you know, my thought was to really
For
divide
pre-meeting.
things into those sort of buckets so we can invite DPW to talk about theirs. Some of the more administrative things we can talk internally, and then bring in FinCom and Kenny to talk about some of the financial ones as well. So that's verbally what I want to present in paper form, and, you know, can work with the chair as far as scheduling things as we go into 2025, so we can have like a workshop on these in regular intervals, and just mark off some of these, and you know, some of them, if all of a sudden we hear from DPW that, hey, that is the perfect snow policy to have, I could not recommend a change, we can provide that feedback, and we can easily skip over those things. So.
Sounds good.
Okay. So next would be the scholarship policy.
So in the board's packet is a clean version, and then a Christmas tree looking version with so much red and blue. That's why we provided the clean version. Sue and I went over looking at all of the scholarship documents, which you also have included in the packet. And Sue did a great job, I think, addressing what the board was discussing. And so want to get some feedback from the board on that, on the policy, and also included is the, where'd it go? I may not have included the letter, but the letter basically is what we saw last meeting, where we were going to be sending it out January 3rd for applications due, I think it was like March 25th, so that at our first April meeting, we can review. But included with that letter, we include the policy that then identifies the purpose for which all these scholarships have been authorized for. I did include a accounting, just so you can see the values. EW Ristine Scholarship does not have enough funds in order to, not only with the change in amount the board voted at the last meeting, but even with the prior amount, still didn't have enough, so we would not use that bucket until it accrued enough interest to then use.
The only comment I had is under the policy, in red. It says, intended to pursue further education in a municipal or service field. And secondly, to those who demonstrate a need and have past involvement. Looking at the Gary Bait, I don't know if the service field, if the kids reading that would understand that that's not necessarily a college program, so it could be, it could be a lineman, it could be a welder, it could be, is there some way should we put a vocational field instead of a
So-
service field?
So that's for, and let me.
It is covered in the definition, but they may not get to that part, because in the definition, it talks about this includes careers in trade schools such as clerks, carpenters, and other skilled trades. But to your point, it doesn't show up in the policy part, so they have
Right.
to sort of like get past that to see what the definition is. Maybe, is that what you?
Right, yeah, that's what I mean, like, I don't know if we can be a little more consistent and use the word vocational instead of
Yeah,
service. Because service, somebody may think of a nurse or,
what if we said
Social
public
worker.
service?
I would just say a
And
college or
vocational activities.
vocational,
Okay.
So I'm just trying to pull up, just to show you what we amended.
To further education in a municipal or service field.
Because for example, the Gary
Said
Bait, when
we-
you look at the
What if we
handwritten
did-
version
sorry,
of
what
the
if we did
Gary
this?
Bait
Intended to-
scholarship.
If we said intended to pursue further education in a municipal or service field or vocation.
I think we take the word service and exchange it for the word vocational.
I feel like vocational makes it more, like, makes it even more narrow, because then it feels like it's
So-
just vocational and not
Well, that's true.
general service, right?
Sue and I came up with language, I'm just looking for the document, because we had said something like post-high school education
Training?
or training.
Yeah,
I'm just looking for it because I know I saved the document.
somewhere, and honestly, I think with Windows 11, it needs a document every here and there.
Uh,
And I think we're sort of all saying the same thing. It's just a question.
I
What
think
are the
we're
best-
just
What's the best,
semantics.
right, what's the best way to,
Took that one right
Right.
from the document, so
right, we certainly are all agreeing, it's just.
It-
what's the-
it's-
I think we
Yes.
took it from that we had a different thing there, but we felt like.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm looking because I made changes to the application to reflect it, and I'm just looking for the application.
And then
It's under my.
We said pursue further education or vocational training. I guess education is vocational training.
Yeah.
Field.
And then the only other thing I had is on page 17 of 35, number 7. I need my Oxford comma, so it's program comma or qualified expense.
Sounds like we gotta look at this again.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm
It's just some,
Referring to the memo.
No, I'm referring to, I had, where it says college or university, I amended that language to specify post-high school education, training or programs, because someone could be in a certificate program, they could be an apprenticeship,
Right.
want to be able to specify that there are other things
And
and
it says on the memo, said applications are, this policy established by the select board outlines the eligibility criteria and implementation procedures for scholarships. The scholarships administered by the select board were approved at the town meeting and are awarded to deserving students from Upland pursuing further education, including college, university, or post-high school training programs.
right.
can you, you know, whether we send it out after our first meeting, but maybe if we can get a clean version of everything, we can look at it at the first January meeting, including the application. And then, yeah,
And we can be ready to send it that morning.
Exactly.
The next-
The next morning,
Yeah.
yes. I would, because I think we're all on the same page. We
Yeah.
just don't see the same
And then
page.
with, as far as schools, we were also talking about it's gonna go to all Upton residents.
Yes. Yes. So in other words, if somebody, for example, it should go out to like St. John's or Norfolk Aggie, or, we may have a few, you know, Worcester Academy, wherever the Catholic schools, yes, it should. So we'll put on our website that it's any Upton resident. So,
Yeah.
You know, and, social media, I always try to put it out as a notice that, look, if you've got a child who lives in Upton and goes to school elsewhere, they're eligible.
Okay,
Okay,
good point.
beautiful. All right, so we'll, like I said, just the final.
Yeah, that's fine. So, do you have, because I did not capture what you had for a comment on the policy itself. Do you have that sort of marked up red line or?
At home, because I was having one of those days. So it was just, there was a comment on the policy on line 7, number 7.
Oh, I saw that.
I just need another comment, another comma.
Okay.
After the word program and before the word or, my famous Oxford comment, which nobody knows anything about except me and Brett's wife.
I'm literally sitting here thinking that.
Tiffany loves it.
I'm
As much
I'm
as
starting
I
to learn
do.
what it is, because I'm like, okay, so that would be an Oxford comma.
That
I
would be.
gotcha.
It would be, and
Right.
somebody mentioned it to me too.
Learning.
Somebody said to me the other day, you put an Oxford comma, and I was like, I love my Oxford comma, and I felt like end it being camp.
Kindred spirits.
It's only, yes, and she said that she loves it because her mother was an editor. So
See, so that's where it came from there.
it's just us grammar geeks that truly love it. So, okay,
Okay.
so moving on. Discussion of future meeting topics. Does anybody have any comments, or I looked at the list, I think we're doing good.
We are gonna,
So
are we sending anything out for town council?
We're going to be starting working on RFQ after the beginning of the year.
No,
Maybe not go out like the beginning of the year. It's, I mean, it shouldn't take long, should it?
No, we have examples, so then we'll start scheduling that within what realistically ends up being our January and February meetings to review RFQ language.
Okay.
There's plenty of boilerplates out there. There are some towns that have
Rather-
recently there are some towns that have just recently gone through that process,
Okay.
and they're available to
Okay.
steal and
Maureen, I think, I'm sorry, Brett, but I think Maureen was gonna say something. It's hard, that delay.
I mean, we keep pushing it off. It gets later and later and we're coming close to town meeting. If we're gonna hire somebody
Yeah.
or stay with who we have, we ought to be
Yeah.
able to get it done.
Yep. I know.
I agree. Yeah, TikTok, it's just kind of like the warrant. It comes up and bites you before you realize it. So the sooner we can get that done, the sooner. We appreciate it.
I was just gonna say, I love seeing this here. I think it's great and helpful to sort of see all the things that are on the table so that we know we're not, it just helps us all stay on track and not lose sort of sight of some of these important things. At some point, we'll get an update on the police chief search process and all that.
We're having a screening committee meeting this Thursday, and
Yeah.
then I'll be reaching out to each of the members to give you an individual update.
Okay. Thank you.
Has anybody reached out to Lisa Burnett on the traffic and littering on Mendon Street?
I'll follow up with her.
She may not be realizing that we're waiting to hear from her. Okay, go ahead, Maureen.
Isn't there an executive session Thursday, 19th? at
Yes,
7?
there is.
Is
Okay.
that for the selectmen also?
No, that's for the screening committee, since it's still reviewing applicants.
Anything else? Oh, review, approve and review the regular and executive session meeting minutes. Once again, your favorite grammar geek. The only correction I had was on line 212. I'll read the line that says pursuing further education or entering trades such as clerks or carpenters. I don't remember mentioning clerks. I'm sure
Took it right off.
yeah, I'm sure you took it right off. I just don't remember, like, I'm like, what's a clerk? So I'd be happy if we took those two words out. Take the word, I'll give it to you, so, remove the word as, so it should remove clerks or, so such as carpenters. And just, remove the word clerks. It just didn't read right to me, and I don't have any recall of mentioning clerks, but other than that, they were perfect.
Yeah, so, yeah, okay, thank you for taking.
Yeah. Unless anybody has an issue with that. Okay, do I hear a motion to accept, both the regular and executive session meeting minutes of December 3rd?
I make a motion to approve the regular and executive session meeting minutes of December 3rd as amended.
Second,
All in favor, roll call vote.
Maureen Dwinell, I.
Simon's aye.
Laura have I. Unanimous. Do I hear a motion for adjourn?
I move that we adjourn the select board meeting of December 17th, 2024.
I second the motion.
All in favor, roll call vote.
Maureen Dwinell, I.
Simon's aye.
Laura have I. Meeting adjourned at 6:47. That's a new record.